Oh man, there's this sweet girl, but life's just a total jerk to her, pushing her towards the dark side no matter what. She's just standing by the phone booth, checking herself out in the mirror. Then, all of a sudden, her cute little dog gets flattened by some knucklehead driver who wasn't paying attention. Heartbroken, the girl buries the pooch with tears pouring down her face. After that, she sits beside the tiny grave, praying quietly for her furry pal. All of a sudden, this guy shows up. He doesn't even see the girl there, and he just pulls it out and starts peeing right on the spot. And of course, it gets all over her. The girl is fuming and shouts, "How could you?" She's about to go give him a piece of her mind, but this creep has some really evil intentions. He almost assaults the girl. She's just crushed after this whole mess. So she figures she'll head to the hospital to see her sick dad, hoping for a little comfort. She grabs the bread that her father loves. When she gets to the hospital, she carefully slices a big hunk of the bread for him. When her dad realizes it's from his little girl, he takes a big, happy chomp. But who could have guessed that this one bite would be a total disaster? The dad gets choked. The girl's freaking out. She books it to get the doctor. But by the time she gets back with help, her dad's already gone. It's like she's become some kind of bad omen. Losing her dad like that, this is just too much for her to handle. She goes home, yanks everything out of the fridge. The girl is actually planning to sleep in the fridge. Her father choked to death on a piece of bread from her, and she just needs to calm herself. But then the fridge door comes crashing down. She manages to hold it up with her hands just in time. Holy cow, if that thing had closed all the way, she'd be a goner, suffocated in there. She's just having the worst luck of her life. But when this poor girl turns into a bit of a devil, her luck actually starts looking up. She gets her revenge on those school bullies who used to make her life hell and those coworkers who always treated her like she was invisible. But the cops, they're completely lost. They can't find a single lead. So what's the deal with this girl? Her name's Rhiannon Lewis, and her life's been a real train wreck. When she was just 8, her mom disappeared like a puff of smoke. Rhiannon is a nobody. In school, her classmates were the worst. They'd walk right past her like she was part of the scenery. If they'd bumped into her, they wouldn't even bat an eye, let alone say sorry. And that's not all. They were always looking for ways to mess with her, throwing the meanest insults at her. Rhiannon was so stressed that she got these killer headaches. Whenever she was nervous, she'd scratch her head like crazy. Before long, she was almost bald, so she had to wear a wig to the school dance. But those jerks still didn't let up. The school bully, Julia, was a real piece of work. She just yanked off her wig, making her the butt of everyone's jokes. Rhiannon thought that once she started working, she'd be free of these nightmares. But 3 years into the job, her boss still treats her like dirt. He's always using her head as a coat hanger or something. And her coworkers, they might as well be blind. They're always in her way, just carrying 2 cups of coffee, and she's spilling them everywhere. When it's time to leave, they just flip the lights off and bail, not even realizing she's still there. After work, she runs into her ex-boyfriend on the street. She waves and shouts hello, but he just strolls past her like she's not even there. Even when she messages her sister, it's like sending them into a black hole. In this cold, lonely world of hers, the only warmth she had was from her sick dad. But then the unexpected hit. Rhiannon accidentally led to her father's death. One day, she's all pumped to visit her dad in the hospital. She pulls out the bread she brought for him, his all-time favorite. She carefully cuts it and hands it to him. But then, her dad starts choking on the bread while eating it. Rhiannon races out of the ward to get the doctor. But the doctor's in the middle of a huge fight with another patient. He doesn't even notice Rhiannon. By the time she finally drags him to the ward, it's too late. Her dad's already passed away. That was the last bit of hope in her life, and now it's gone. Rhiannon stumbles out of the hospital in a daze. Just then, a car comes barreling towards her. It nearly flattens her. Rhiannon collapses in the car, crying her eyes out, and in her heart, a seed of hatred starts to grow. You know what? Saren comes across as this terribly unfilial daughter. At their father's funeral, Saren is the last to arrive, and there's not a shred of sorrow on her face. The guests at the funeral are just as bad. When they pass by Rhiannon, it's like she's a ghost. Rhiannon's already drowning in grief. And then there's Julia and the other 3 school bullies parading around at the funeral. Rhiannon trembles with fear and quickly makes a beeline for the exit. That old familiar headache comes crashing back like a tidal wave. After the funeral, Saren decides to sell their father's house. And to make matters worse, she hands the whole deal over to Julia. Turns out, Julia's now a real estate agent. Rhiannon pleads with Saren. "We can't sell the house. It's filled with our family memories." But Saren acts like she's deaf to Rhiannon's pleas. She just hops in the car and drives off, leaving Rhiannon standing there. On the way home, Rhiannon checks Julia's social media and nearly loses it. Julia's married some rich guy and is living the high life, the kind that makes anyone green with envy. Rhiannon's so mad, she's clenching her teeth. You've trashed my life, and now you're living large. How's that fair? At this point, Rhiannon's anger meter shoots up to 30%. Jealousy in a girl can be a downright terrifying thing. Rhiannon's hell-bent on being richer than Julia, that school bully who used to torment her. She marches into the boss's office. She asks for a promotion to be a journalist. I mean, she's been at the front desk for 3 years. She's got a ton of experience under her belt. Plus, she spent countless hours gathering up-to-date news material. But the boss? He doesn't even know who she is. He even goes on about how a journalist has to have the killer instincts, like a predator. Well, that little comment plants a seed in Rhiannon's mind, and she starts seriously considering what it takes to be a killer. First off, she vents her rage by stabbing at a package. Just then, a new applicant waltzes in. And wouldn't you know it, this person has a quick chat with the boss, and within minutes lands the journalist gig that Rhiannon's been drooling over. Rhiannon watches this new guy, AJ, and now her anger levels hit 50%. Rhiannon is plotting to murder her colleague because he snatched her position. After work, Rhiannon grabs a knife and starts quietly trailing Ajay. She's on the verge of making a move when, oops, she nicks her own hand with the knife. Ajay seems to sense something and turns around. Rhiannon quickly stomps on the knife under her shoe and stutters that she doesn't have his contact details yet. She's rooted to the spot, petrified that Ajay will see right through her evil intentions. When he finally turns and walks away, Rhiannon lets out a huge sigh of relief and retrieves the knife. Her first attempt at this crazy scheme has gone down in flames. At night, when Rhiannon's out walking her dog, she looks up and sees Julia's picture on a billboard. In that instant, the fear she felt before comes roaring back. Rhiannon's got this odd little habit. Whenever she's nervous or scared, she'll start scratching her head. This time, she actually scratches off a clump of hair. When she catches a glimpse of herself in the mirror, there's a bald patch on her head. But just then, wham! She spins around and sees her precious little dog lying there, hit by a car. Rhiannon glares at Julia's billboard with pure hatred in her eyes. At this moment, her anger level skyrockets to 80%. She tenderly buries the dog's body in her yard and then proceeds to drown her sorrows in alcohol. One bottle after another, she just wants the booze to numb the pain and anger that's eating her up inside. Under the influence of the alcohol, Rhiannon tracks down Julia. It's like she's unleashing all the years of being wronged and the mountain of unfairness on Julia. She blames Julia for the dog's death too. It's you. You've wrecked my life. But Julia? She doesn't have a speck of guilt and doesn't even remember being classmates with Rhiannon. She just sneers. You were a nobody to me back then, and you still are. Rhiannon looks at Julia and the other three with her. Her mind's like a movie reel, replaying all the times they bullied her. Finally, she's all alone, huddled under a bridge. She takes out the utility knife her father left her. It's the only thing that offers her a shred of comfort right now. Just then, what if you got peed on? Would you fly off the handle? There's this one guy who just starts pissing right next to Rhiannon, and the pee, it just soaks her all over. Rhiannon is shaking with fury. She walks right up to him and gives him a hard kick. Her anger just explodes and reaches its peak. With the knife in her hand, she stabs the guy with all her might, but she doesn't stop there. She keeps on stabbing over and over again, a dozen times more, and she yells, "Now you see me, don't you?" When Rhiannon finally comes out of her crazy state, the guy's already lying on the ground, not breathing. In a panic, she heaves the body into the water. Then she looks around nervously. When she sees that there's no one around, she quickly puts on a hat, wraps herself up all cozy-like, and hurries home. It's kind of lucky that she's been overlooked for so many years. Because of that, this time, nobody notices the blood on her. The next morning, Rhiannon wakes up. She touches her face and feels how smooth and soft her skin has become. The dark circles under her eyes that used to be so noticeable, they're gone. And her hair, it's grown a whole lot. She's really confused about this when all of a sudden, she spots a dried up bloodstain on her neck. Then it hits her. Remember the awful thing she did the day before. There in the bathtub are the clothes she was wearing yesterday, all soaked in blood. She accidentally steps on the knife she used for the crime. It's only at this moment that Rhiannon really gets it. She's actually killed someone. She quickly scoops up the clothes from the tub and throws them all into the washing machine, even the pajamas she's got on. Rhiannon strips off her clothes and crouches at home, her mind reeling with the events of last night. She can't believe she actually killed that guy who peed on her. She picks up the knife with her hands shaking like leaves, staring at the bloodstain still on it. Strangely though, there's this little spark of excitement that rises up inside her. She boils a pot of water, and once it's boiling madly, she drops the knife in. That should get rid of the blood on it for good. Rhiannon heads off to work like it's any other day. On the bus, she catches sight of the police pulling the victim she dumped in the river last last night out of the water. She knows right away that this whole thing might not stay under wraps. When she gets to work, she sits at her desk and starts searching for news. Just then, Ajay brings her a cup of coffee all sweet-like. Rhiannon's really touched. I mean, this is the first time anyone's ever shown her this much care. Before she can even catch her breath, Jeff, her colleague, walks in. He tells the boss about the police finding the body and guesses that it might have been an accident, like the guy just fell in. Rhiannon's listening, and before she can stop herself, she blurts out, "It's a murder." Everyone in the office turns to look at her in shock. Rhiannon realizes what she said and quickly tries to cover it up. "I heard it from someone else." Later, Jeff goes to the police station to get the full story. When he comes back, he tells everyone that it's definitely a murder. The victim had 14 stab wounds. There were cuts all over his abdomen, arms, and legs. But the body was so clean from being in the river that the police don't have any leads on the killer yet. Rhiannon hears this and feels a little better. She waits until Jeff's not looking and sneaks his news notebook. She's hoping there's nothing in there that can get her in trouble. But it's all in shorthand, and she can't make any sense of it. AJ sees what she's doing and tries to comfort her. "Don't worry, the killer will be caught." This scares Rhiannon half to death. Can you believe it? In the UK, a whopping 62% of homicide cases never get solved. Rhiannon keeps telling herself that the case of her accidental killing will be one of those. She doesn't dare say another word and just scurries away. After a while, she gets a call from Jeff. He tells her the victim's name and address. Rhiannon grabs a piece of paper, writes it down, and goes to the boss. She begs him to let her cover this story. She even says she's really good at comforting the female relatives of the victim. The boss says yes. So Rhiannon and Ajay head off to the victim's home together. When they get there are pictures of the victim all over the place. In the victim's mother's eyes, her son was just perfect. She can't stop singing his praises. Rhiannon makes an excuse and sneaks into the victim's room. She's rummaging around when she spots a letter in the trash can. It's a letter saying the victim got fired. Her eyes light up. There's more to this story than meets the eye. After they leave the victim's home, Rhiannon and Ajay go to talk to the victim's former colleagues. When they get there, they hear a whole different side of the story. Turns out, these two had a huge grudge going on. At first, it was just little spats, but later, the victim really went too far. He started spreading rumors that his former colleague had a thing for little girls. You should never go around spreading rumors willy-nilly. Take this victim. He managed to find a picture of a little girl in a bathtub on his colleague's computer and then proceeded to tell everyone that the colleague was a pervert. Every time the colleague recalls this, he gets so furious that he shakes all over. However, when the company's top brass got wind of this, they just turned a blind eye. Before long, it evolved into workplace bullying. Rhiannon finally feels like a massive burden has been lifted from her. Turns out the guy she killed was really a bad apple. On her way home, Rhiannon is in an incredibly good mood. But then, all of a sudden, her sister sends her a text. It says that Julia's about to bring some people over to inspect the house. Rhiannon's scared stiff that Julia will notice something amiss at home, so she dashes back. She bolts to the bathroom, turns the faucet on full throttle, and scrubs to wash away the bloodstains in the bathtub. Then she hurries to the pot, grabs the knife, and wipes it clean with great care. Just as she's done, there's a knock at the door. It's Julia and her posse. Julia remarks, "Oh, Rhiannon, your hair looks fabulous." But that comment immediately makes Rhiannon remember the time when they bullied her so mercilessly that she almost lost all her hair. The hatred she feels for Julia in her heart surges even more. Rhiannon goes to the boss and tells him about how the victim bullied his former colleague. After hearing this, the boss realizes that this story is far more valuable than just a simple mourning of the dead. Even though Jeff is still in charge of this report, when it's time to celebrate at night for the first time in forever, the boss actually includes Rhiannon. For Rhiannon, this is like a once-in-a-lifetime moment. She's so excited that she jumps up on the stage and belts out a song. Everyone is captivated by her singing and looks at her with admiration in their eyes. But just then, Rhiannon's accidental killing is on the brink of being discovered by the police. The cops suddenly show up at the party, and just like that, the joyous atmosphere is shattered in an instant. Rhiannon tries to compose herself, but she involuntarily takes several steps back. The store manager goes over to check and then comes back to inform everyone that it's just a routine inspection. When Rhiannon hears this, she lets out a huge sigh of relief. She steps out of the bathroom, and when she looks up, she sees a face that's all too familiar. It's that man who caused the delay in her father's treatment by arguing with the doctor in the hospital. The moment Rhiannon lays eyes on him, a bold and crazy idea springs to her mind. She trails him all the way to a narrow alley. When she sees that there's no one near the dumpster, she calls out to him in a pitiful tone, "My dog ran into the trash can. Can you help me look?" The man, seeing that Rhiannon is rather attractive, gives her a lecherous look and agrees. The instant he bends down, Rhiannon drives the knife in her hand into his back with force. Then she follows up with another stab and another. In no time, the man lies still, and Rhiannon just stands there with a warped, satisfied smile on her face. She's not only avenged her father, but also indulged that terrifying urge within her. As she walks home, looking at Julia's billboard by the roadside, Rhiannon's eyes turn icy and resolute. It seems that she's already picked her third target. This is the latest and hottest British drama of 2024, Sweetpea. It's adapted from the novel of the same name by C.J. Skuse. No one would ever believe that the seemingly frail Rhiannon is a serial killer. Once you start down the path of crime, it's awfully hard to turn back. Can Rhiannon salvage her life and get what she wants? Can she get rid of Julia, the object of her hatred? If you want to see what happens next, leave a 1 in the comments. We'll be back. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.